Go ahead.
Hey, obviously your name, your position at the company.
Hi, I'm Michael Arst, COO of Connected Devices and the Atari VCS for Atari.
So let's talk about what you're demoing here at CES 2020. This product was a very successful Indiegogo, so kind of give us an update of where you've gone from the original crowdfunding phase to where we are today showing off the product.
So obviously the crowdfunding, you're starting with a concept, right? And we thought we had a really solid concept, but it was one of those things where you just don't know. Yes, people love Atari. Everybody buys their T-shirts, buys our flashbacks, buys rubber centipedes, all that good stuff, right? But how will the audience and the fans react to a new Atari device that is very much built for the 21st century? We had a concept. The idea was to create something that was a lot more sort of open and accessible and easier to mod and custom. We looked at what the community that has grown up around Atari over the last 40 years is into, and there's a maker element. There's a lot of people making games still, loading them onto cartridges for the old 2600. There is that 2600 mystique. It evokes such warm fuzzies for so many of us who grew up with those games, whether it was in the arcade, and then obviously just the insane, when you're a kid, the insanity of bringing home those arcade games and being able to play them on your TV and be able to interact with your TV and not just have it be dumb. Obviously we all know Atari's legacy in sort of kickstarting, pardon the pun, that that age of the home console. So we had this concept. We put that teaser out in 2017, a couple weeks before E3, which, by the way, that was the E3 where the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X were being launched. And, we were just blown away. I mean, the noise that trailer generated and all the attention that it generated, people were like, what is Atari doing? So we knew we had something there. And obviously we had a lot of work to do to sort of bring this concept to the point where we felt good enough to put it onto Indiegogo, which we did ultimately in May of 2018. Blew up Indiegogo, and then we were off to the races, off and running. We knew we had to build this thing because of the way the fans reacted to it, and obviously. I'd be remiss if I didn't, sort of acknowledge that there's a lot of people who, are critical of it. But I think that, the more we show what we've been doing, the more we show the direction we're heading, the more we explain it, the more people are understanding. It's not a $300 retro box. That's not what it is. It's a game machine, it's a PC, and it's open sandbox and streaming, right? So it's a very modern take and interpretation on Atari, and obviously the way it looks like it's part of the family. The same way a 2019 Mini Cooper looks like it's part of the same family that a 1974 Mini Cooper looks, right? So that was sort of our foundation and where we started, but ultimately we wanted to make a living room PC game machine that guys who spend all their day working at a PC all day at their desk want to play games at night. They want to play on their big TV. They don't want to sit at the same desk that they sat at all day working, right? You know what I'm talking about.
No, that speaks to me. No, so I kind of want to talk about the position that your company's in and the design decisions that you've made here. You had to do this delicate balance of staying true to the classic nature of Atari, staying true to the retro fans out there, but at the same time allowing yourselves to take these risks. Can you talk about how being a smaller, more nimble company than some of the bigger players in the console space has allowed you to take these risks, like the sandbox, or these things or the ability to unscrew the bottom of it easily and swap out parts? How your company, being a smaller, more nimble entity, allows you to make these choices that maybe your competitors wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a lot easier to turn a motorboat than it is to turn a steamship, right? But the reality is that we really feel like I said earlier in this conversation, the community is out there and it's very established. And look, there's always going to be guys and girls, people out there who want to collect physical cartridges and things like that. There are plenty of machines out there that are going to let them do that. There's still 2600s out there that'll let them do that, and that's fine. And we love those guys and love that legacy. But we also wanted something that would appeal to a new generation of gamers. Something that'll play Fortnite, but also play Asteroids, right? So by being able to listen to the community and be nimble, as you said, the box that we're showing today has some significant differences from the box that we first put on Indiegogo. First and foremost, upgrading the AMD Ryzen chip was a must for us. We realized that, we were in the chip that we were using at first was perfectly fine. It was the Bristol Ridge chip. It did a lot of what we needed to do, but we also said this box has to be a lot more future-proof. This box has to have 4K. This box has to have 60 frames per second for streaming, because that's the direction a lot of people are going. I don't have to tell you guys, there's a lot of big companies putting a lot of money into game streaming, right? And so video streaming, game streaming, it's very similar. We needed a box that would still be valid 5 years from now. And that ties into a little bit of what you said about the upgradability too. So the upgradability, it's going to work great right now in its standard configuration, and we've showed you games that are running on it that are demanding.
Yeah, no, I kind of have a question about how the iteration occurred on the hardware and the software side. Were there times where you're like, this product needs to do X, Y, and Z from a software standpoint, and then you went to the hardware? Or was it one of these things where when you were in the lab working on the industrial design and the specs of the product that you realized, oh, we could put Windows on this, we could put Linux on this? At what point did you decide that Sandbox was going to be a thing? And like, when did these, I guess, in the genesis of the product, like, where did all these things kind of fall into place to lead to where it is today?
I mean, the open platform concept was there from the start. I mean, we were talking about that from 2017 when we first conceived this thing, and that was one of the things that we think got people excited, right? So that notion of an open platform has always been there. But we also knew that there's going to be a huge amount of purchasers and users who are just going to want to get into the Atari ecosystem and play around there, shop in our store, play the games that are there, play our games, play other games, maybe jump over to Antstream, jump over to some of the other games that we think will end up here, and wanted to sort of give the best of both worlds. And that, we think that's one of the things we stuck to right from the start and still lives today. And as we've demonstrated, before this interview, some of the things that we've shown you,
Yeah, sure.
It's absolutely been a part of the DNA of this project and this product from the start.
Talking about the best of both worlds, you have two very different input devices that are going to be shipping with this product. One is a modern gamepad, and kind of like the Xbox One style of product, and then the other is a reimagination of the joystick.
Yeah.
He talked about how you folks went about iterating upon the joystick and kind of reimagining it with that trigger button or with the lighting, like all these different things that you did to make it still feel like, when I held that, I felt like I was holding the original controller. It gave me that same nostalgic feeling, but it also feels like a new 2020 product. You talk about the design iteration of both the controller products.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'll make a deal. I'll talk about this guy for a second while your colleague goes over and grabs the joystick, because we don't have one here, and then we can talk about that. But anyway, so this one, obviously, yeah, I mean, everybody's seen a controller that looks like this. We gave it a couple of, cool Atari touches. Fire is always red in Atari language, right? So we made that trigger red. Obviously up here, echoing the classic design. The orange light in a dash that, sort of echo the old controllers. But obviously there's a lot of games that you just need all the multiple inputs of a modern controller, or there's people who just they remember the claw cramp from the old CX40, and they just want the new one, which is fine. And we love the new one. And the new one, came out great. It's got great feel. People love it. It's a good, I hate to use the word generic. It's a good standard modern gamepad type controller. It'll work with PC games. It'll work obviously on our console, work in a lot of places, and works really well. And that's the Atari VCS modern controller. So this is the guy you were really excited about. This is.
I'm excited about both of them.
Well, no, but this is our new, what we're calling the Atari Classic controller. So this, basically, form factor is very familiar, right, for Atari followers and fans. But what this one has added is a few things. First and foremost, we added, and this was something that was not there originally on the Indiegogo. People said, well, how do I play paddle games? And we, in the back of our minds, always knew we were going to work this in, but paddle and steering wheel are here. You can probably hear it. We also replaced the old paint, orange paint, with some lights that will also react to different inputs from the game, so that the optimized Atari games that are coming in the vault will be updated to work with this controller and give us some of this feedback. There's also haptics in here, so you'll feel the rumble. So if your ship blows up, you're gonna feel it. Your asteroids blow up, you're gonna feel it. We added the traditional menu and back buttons that you see on modern controllers, and then we also added the extra trigger here because this was part of the old claw problem, right? So you can remap fire to this if you want, a little bit more comfortable. Everything about this thing just really, even the dish here just gives you a little bit more grip. The way we decided to put the feet on it give you some grip. So yeah, it's not technically an ergonomic one like the other gamepad is, but we did the best we could with what it is. But what's really exciting about this is for modern arcade games, and when you put the Atari VCS and you put this controller, obviously the modern controller, but you put tools, a toolbox into people's hands and creative people's hands, what will they come up with? That's what we're really excited to see, because again, that's part of the Atari heritage and DNA nowadays. There's so much creativity out there creating new games for old systems. Now, here's a new system, a lot more capabilities, but hey, you're still gonna have the joystick that has a little bit more limitations, fewer buttons, but what will they come up with? What will the fans and the devs build to make this guy, relevant again? And we think, like you said, first and foremost, it had to feel good. It had to have a lot of really good qualities, so that people want to develop for it. People pick it up, and when creatives come in and we meet with them and they pick this guy up, they're like, I want to make a game that works with that, and that's really been really fun to experience and to have conversations about.
So talking about the games on the platform, there's a lot of different ways to experience games on this device.
Yes, sir.
With the Vault, and Stream, and then also the ability to install Steam or Epic Game Store on Windows and run it in Sandbox.
Windows, Ubuntu, Chrome, you can put whatever operating system you want on it. It's pretty easy. So I'll just very quickly flip through this for a second. So if you go to the store, you will see that we've got things like, sorry, I didn't go down far enough. Or did I not go over enough? Hang on, forgive me, I don't remember where we put things. So there you go. So you can see we're going to make it easy to link over and access other operating systems. You'll need a USB that's big enough to store it. You'll plug it into the front. You'll go to the, in the case of Windows, you have to buy it, obviously, but, the two Linux builds, operating systems, you'll be able to download, install, and the way the box works is if the thumbstick or the USB or the drive is in there and it's plugged in when you boot it up, it'll boot to that. Simply get out of it, take the stick out, and you're back in the Atari environment.
Well, I think
there's a couple more steps than that, but it's pretty simple.
What I think's really interesting, though, is that, yes, you have your own launcher, but at the same time, because you support Windows and Linux and all these other operating systems, you support Epic Game Store, you support Game Pass.
In theory, well, that's what I said. In theory, that's the open platform, right? You can do whatever you want with this hardware. It's your hardware. Customize it if you want. Live in the Atari world, which we obviously expect a lot of people to do. Play games, watch videos. There's a lot of things that you can do here, and we're really excited. And I think we're going to surprise a lot of people. I think there's a lot of activity out there. Obviously, big corporate consoles coming this year. A rework of the Switch is coming. There's some other retro flavored things coming, but we're trying to inhabit a nice little niche that sort of gives people a lot of flexibility, a lot of creativity, gives them obviously the nostalgia factor that we want, because obviously retro, now is a good time to be Atari, right? Because retro is really in. You see it in fashion, you see it in vehicles. I mentioned Mini Cooper, right? People like that. Mini Coopers, Mustangs, they just go on forever, right?
And with respect to retro games and just games in general, right now you have you kind of shown us the current vision. With like Switch, we've seen these collections of games. Is this something where you're going to be able to talk to different publishers and dev houses down the road once you have the platform up and running to see? Because this can obviously run games that are higher fidelity than Atari games. So it seems like there's so many retro game platforms that you guys can tap into down the road, either being it on your Atari platform or through Steam or whatever. It's like you talk about the opportunity of how many different retro fans could actually end up playing this.
Well, yes. I mean, the answer is yes. But it's one of the reasons why we knew that one of the first deals we needed to do was with our friends at AntStream. Those guys, by spring, should have. They're saying they'll have as many as 2,000 games ready to go when the box comes out, when our box comes out. So that's really exciting, because right out of the gate, all these games that you remember from all these different platforms, they're going to be available and ready to go. Moving on from there, the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, in theory, obviously somebody who's really adept at it could get a lot of Nintendo games to work on here. Can we one day have a relationship with them where we've got Nintendo games as a native app? I sure hope so, but we got to walk before we run. I mean, the priority for Atari that has been there from day one with this project has been build a quality foundation that, not that we want it to last another 40 years, but look at the legacy we're dealing with, right? We have to have a box that is bomb-proof, no issues right from the start, a couple of basic controllers, and from there, if that all works the way we know it will, then in theory, sky's the limit. We start putting these things into the hands of creative people and consumers, and I think there's a lot that can happen, and it's exciting. And look, the Atari name gets us in the door, but you got to walk the walk, and if we walk through that door and the product isn't solid, none of the other things can happen.
Well, wasn't Nintendo a third-party dev originally?
Yes, they were. Absolutely.
I mean, you might still have some contacts over there.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about Atari. So part of the reason this is the current iteration of Atari, is kind of scrappy fighter type. We came from a really tough situation in 2013. The previous iteration ran itself into the ground. The current ownership was previous ownership. They came back. They knew the value of it. They built it up. Fred Chenet, our CEO, is a brilliant guy, great guy to work for, understood what needed to be done to clean things up, get the company profitable, start making games again, and that's been happening. And we've been really successful with some of the recent games. There's more things coming, more exciting things coming, and the games division is run by Jean-Marcel Nicolai, who comes from Disney, previously with Atari. Phenomenally talented guy, also great guy who understands what needs to happen. But at the same time, Atari was always a hardware company too. And that was one of the things that Fred always wanted to make sure came back to Atari as well. So, doing licensed things is great, but having an Atari game system, we've used the word console a couple of times in this discussion, but we really tend to try and not use that word, because to us, console has kind of finite borders. It's a walled garden of sorts. The other consoles aren't going to let you have the freedom and the flexibility that we've built into it from day one. Not that there's anything wrong with that strategy. They obviously do incredibly well. We're not trying to compete with those guys. What we wanted to do was create something that was fun and easy and accessible and open, like I said over and over, and also that felt like it was a continuation of that Atari legacy. So, the styling is one thing, the naming of it, calling it a VCS, but that's what it is. It's a video computer system. It's a computer that you interface through your television, right? And that's why we felt that name resonated. 800 and 400, that's an homage to the old computers, right? In our case, designation keyed to the RAM, but still, all of those things sort of go into that stew pot. There's some nostalgia in there, but again, the device had to be modern and it had to be solid, and it is. I mean, the device has been nothing but fun for us to work on. I mean, look, anything worthwhile is a lot of hard work, and this, we've certainly been working very hard on it, but we're really excited with where it's going and how it's looking, and we're excited to launch this spring, ahead of some of the other guys that we've talked about, which will be exciting. Again, let Atari get our foot in the door, and let's see what happens.
So do you have the price points available, and is there a release date or is it a window right now?
It's a window, really. I mean, we have plans to start shipping in March. We've always had that. We're still on that track right now. We haven't set a specific date, but March can mean you've got 31 days to work with, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're still on track for that. There's a couple of things that have popped up. We've been very candid with our backers. We thought we were going to get the Indiegogo backers their product in December, but we didn't feel like we were ready to give them their product. We want, for us, the testing and all the work you do in the final stages before mass production is the most important work. And we, like I said a couple of times already, are prioritizing quality and making sure that this thing is a phenomenal piece of equipment first and foremost. It's not going to do everything, but have it be the best Atari VCS it can be. And like I said, then we've got a firm foundation, a firm platform. So yes, we're still tracking on that. So right after CES, we're headed right back to the factory to finalize all the preparations for mass production. It's kind of a race against things like Chinese New Year, things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy couple of months, but crazy good. I mean, there's a lot of progress, and just the engineers have just, like I said earlier, been exacting, like just everything that they could possibly impact positively they have. And so we've got a board that is simplified and streamlined. We've got, we've been able to reduce, parts, capacitors, and resistors here and there. The machine is running cooler and more efficiently than it ever has before, than the initial ones did. And and we're just, looking forward to that day where we can flip the switch on mass production, get the first batch out to our Indiegogo folks, get the rest out to retail, and we think it's going to be exciting. We're really looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah. So price point, and where can we buy it?
So price point. There's a base model that starts at $249. That's the Atari VCS Onyx 400, or Atari VCS 400 Onyx, I should say. That's at $249. That's just a base unit with 4 gigs of RAM that will do just about everything, and then obviously everything is upgradable. The high end is the bundles, which are at $389 for, there's a black walnut bundle, which is the wood face. That's available on AtariVCS.com. There's a Onyx, which is the black and red one, which is available at GameStop.com. There is a carbon gold, which is a very cool carbon fiber that is available at Walmart.com right now, and more retailers and more regions to be announced very soon. We're having a lot of meetings here at CES with retailers, distributors, different hardware folks, and there's a lot going on right now, so it's juggling.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your team's attention to detail when it comes to product. It's this presentation really floored me, so it was really nice to see.
Thank you. I really appreciate the kind words. That's music to our ears, right?